Australia in the 1980s wanted cars that felt modern, tough, and proudly local. Factories promised innovation. Buyers dreamed of reliability and status. But underneath the shiny brochures, some of these cars hid serious flaws that wouldn't surface until it was too late. Engines overheated. Electronics failed. Rust crept in silently. By the end of the decade, one car had done more damage than any other. Let's start with number 10. Number 10, Datsun 200B. By the early 1980s, the Datsun 200B was already a familiar sight on Australian roads, marketed as dependable, affordable, and easy to live with. Families trusted the Nissan badge, and the simple four-cylinder engine seemed like a safe bet for daily driving. But underneath that reputation was a car prone to rust around the wheel arches and sills, especially in coastal Australian climates. Owners who parked near the beach or drove through wet winters often watched their cars corrode from the inside out. The carbureted engine also struggled with tuning issues that left mechanics scratching their heads. It wasn't a disaster overnight. It was slower, quieter, and far more frustrating than anyone expected. Number 9 was a different kind of nightmare entirely. Number 9, Renault 18. The Renault 18 arrived in Australia promising European sophistication, smooth handling, and a touch of continental style that stood out against local competition. Buyers who wanted something different were drawn to its comfortable ride and distinctive design. But French electrical systems were never built with Australian summers in mind. Wiring degraded under extreme heat, dashboard lights flickered without warning, and dealers often lacked the specialized parts needed for quick repairs. The four-cylinder engine itself was capable enough, but paired with unreliable electronics, it became a constant source of anxiety. Some owners loved the car despite its quirks. Others sold it within a year, exhausted by repeated trips to the mechanic. And the next car took electrical trouble to an entirely different level. Number 8, Chrysler Sigma Scorpion. The Sigma Scorpion promised something Australian buyers rarely saw from a family sedan platform, genuine turbocharged performance wrapped in everyday practicality. Enthusiasts were excited by the idea of a factory-boosted Mitsubishi-based engine that could outrun its rivals at the lights. On paper, that sounded like a clever solution to Australia's demand for both economy and excitement. But early turbocharging technology wasn't fully mature, and the added heat and pressure exposed weaknesses in the engine's internals. Reports of premature wear and costly turbo failures spread through owner circles. Insurance premiums climbed as the car's reputation shifted from exciting to expensive. What began as innovation slowly became a warning story. But the real trouble in this list was only just beginning to build. Number 7, Nissan Bluebird. The Nissan Bluebird entered Australian showrooms as a sensible, modern alternative to aging local sedans, appealing to buyers who wanted Japanese engineering without sacrificing space. Its four-cylinder engine was smooth, its cabin comfortable, and its fuel economy attractive during a decade of rising petrol prices. Yet transmission problems, particularly in early automatic models, became a recurring headache. Owners reported hesitant shifting, slipping gears, and expensive replacements well before the car reached old age. Dealerships weren't always prepared for the volume of complaints. What should have been a dependable commuter car instead became synonymous with unexpected workshop visits. Would you have trusted one for a daily 90-minute commute? Because the next entry made that question feel almost quaint by comparison. Number 6, Peugeot 505. The Peugeot 505 carried genuine prestige, offering Australian buyers a taste of French engineering with a reputation for excellent ride comfort and long-distance capability. Its inline engines were torquey, and the suspension soaked up rough country roads better than most local rivals. For a while, it felt like the smart choice for buyers wanting something upmarket. But maintenance costs told a different story. Parts had to be imported, specialist mechanics were scarce outside major cities, and even minor repairs became expensive ordeals. Rural owners in particular found themselves stranded waiting weeks for components. The car itself wasn't fundamentally broken, but owning one in Australia often felt like a financial trap. And the next car's problems ran even deeper than cost alone. Number 5, Alfa Romeo GT V6. The Alfa Romeo GT V6 was, for many enthusiasts, the most desirable car on this entire list. Its howling V6 engine and razor-sharp handling made it a genuine driver's car, and Australian buyers who found one felt like they discovered something special. But that excitement came at a steep price. Electrical gremlins plagued the wiring loom, rust attacked the body at an alarming rate, and specialist parts were nearly impossible to source locally. Owners who adored the driving experience often found themselves fighting the car just to keep it running. It wasn't unloved. It was simply unforgiving. Would that combination of passion and pain have been enough to make you walk away? Because what came next affected far more ordinary families. Number 4, Nissan Pintara. The Nissan Pintara was built specifically for Australian conditions, developed locally under a government-backed model sharing scheme meant to strengthen domestic manufacturing. It looked promising on paper, combining Japanese engineering with local assembly. Buyers expected reliability and value. Instead, many encountered inconsistent build quality, with panel gaps, trim rattles, and electrical faults that shouldn't have existed on a supposedly refined platform. The four-cylinder engine itself was reasonably solid, but corner-cutting elsewhere undermined confidence in the whole car. Resale values suffered badly as word spread. What was meant to showcase Australian manufacturing ambition instead became an example of good intentions poorly executed. But the next entry's flaw wasn't hidden in the details. It was baked into the entire design. Number 3, Volvo 340. Volvo built its reputation on safety, and the 340 arrived in Australia carrying that trusted name into a smaller, more affordable segment. Buyers assumed Swedish engineering meant Swedish durability. But the 340 used a Dutch-derived platform with a Variamatic-style transmission unfamiliar to Australian mechanics, and repairs often required specialized knowledge few local workshops possessed. Owners described frustrating delays getting even routine servicing done properly. Performance was modest, and the driving experience disappointed those expecting genuine Volvo character. The badge promised confidence. The ownership experience delivered confusion instead. And if you think that combination sounds difficult, the next car managed to combine nearly every problem on this list into a single, expensive package. Number 2, Ford Cortina. By the time the Ford Cortina reached the end of its Australian run in the early 1980s, it was already a familiar and trusted nameplate, beloved for decades as a practical family sedan. Buyers picked it up expecting the same dependability that had defined earlier generations. But rust had become a serious structural issue, attacking sills, floor pans, and wheel arches faster than owners could manage. Combined with aging mechanical components nearing the end of their production life, the later Cortinas aged poorly compared to their reputation. Cars that should have lasted a decade were falling apart within a few short years. The badge still meant something. The metal underneath increasingly didn't. But nothing on this list compares to what earned the very top spot. Number 1, Holden Camira. The Holden Camira was supposed to be Australia's answer to modern, efficient motoring, built on General Motors' global J-car platform and marketed heavily as the car of the future. Families lined up, trusting the Holden badge completely. Then the cooling system began failing, repeatedly, across thousands of vehicles, often leading to overheated and warped cylinder heads. Interior trim cracked in the Australian sun. Rust spread through panels that were never properly protected. Repair bills piled up faster than owners could keep pace, and resale values collapsed almost overnight. What was meant to be Holden's proudest achievement became the decade's most infamous cautionary tale, a car whose name alone still makes Australian motoring enthusiasts wince decades later. These 10 cars remind us that ambition and execution don't always align. Some offered genuine innovation. Others simply overpromised. None were failures in every sense, but each taught Australian buyers hard lessons about trusting first impressions. Which one surprised you most? Would you have driven any of these in the 1980s, knowing what was coming? If a video like this interests you, there's more automotive history worth exploring. Some cars are remembered fondly. Others are remembered as warnings.